Yes, the weather for today calls for a rain of god babies who will terrorize and take over the planet. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm moving to the moon. Going over for this one had the Ojamajo congratulating Hana on landing a role that we'll soon see in the episode proper. However, someone was lucky to overtake the toddler. Dude, unless you're voiced by Ken, don't even try and pull off the narcissist archetype, and even then, that's not a total recipe for success or anything. Anyway, we once again return to the set of that same director guy who we've been seeing in like the past few episodes or so. Like, is he the Steven Spielberg of this universe, with everyone wanting him to make their movies for him? Because, just want to let you know, there are some declining returns. But yeah, as it turned out, a baby they were going to bring in to play the role of a child of a mother in Opu's next production had gotten sick and had to stay home. Fortunately, the Ojamajo just so happened to have a baby that they could use and not need to pay, which really isn't too different from the adults of Hollywood even after those strikes. Thus, while looking at their magical flowers that were at varying stages, Opu called in the rest of her friends and Hana, not knowing an evil shinobi was in the wings. Akatsuki, along with Toru, reported in to Oyashi. The latter boy was watching the performance of a male idol who was clearly chosen more for his looks and definitely not his singing.
Wow, this is garbage. You actually like this?
Figuring that he could replicate this kid's total lack of any sort of talent, Toru decided to try and become an idol himself. Yeah, I think they're even holding auditions for Dancing Star Precure, which shouldn't be all that hard to get into. And learning that Opu was also going to be there, Oyashi decided to quote-unquote supervise his underling. I feel like a broken record with this guy. Anyway, at the TV station, Spielberg gave the okay for Hana. And sure enough, it didn't take long for the demon child to cause mischief, like costing the studio a good arm and a leg by transmuting a couple of lights into sunflowers. Get it? Because sun and light, they're both things that make things brighter. Okay, I'll stop. At the same time, Oyashi and Toru were trying to get into the studio, and to the lad's credit, he was able to quickly pick up that they just needed some believable looking ID cards to pass through, so he made a forgery for himself, while the only thing around Oyashi's neck was a disposable camera. Hey, I didn't say anything, the show did for me. Filming was proceeding smoothly until this little brat showed up, and you know, I'm starting to feel bad for Spielberg here. Like, I think every time we see him in the show, his movies end up having just as many issues as your typical MCU production. Granted, he did at least try to make the best out of his situation by seeing if this straggler could contribute to his movie, but yeah, Toru was supposed to act as a waiter in this scene, and oh, I didn't realize this was supposed to be a comedy. Hey kid, you ever hear of a little app called TikTok? It's really convenient, and best of all, detached from the rest of the world. Yeah, let's just get this out of the way. While Toru isn't really a hateable character per se, he's also just plain annoying. I mean, normally, I would say there's more to a character like this, especially considering we're not even halfway into this episode, but believe me, there's really not much else to him other than being a nuisance. Anyway, after finishing up all the scenes involving Hana, the staff went on break. The Ojamajo decided to spend their time together exploring the TV studio, where they managed to run across the filming of a talent show that, of course, Toru tried to take part in. And while to his credit, he did have the moves and rhythm down. Yeah, you know what clip we have to use here.
If I were you, I'd phone up the War Department, volunteer your services, because you've just invented a new form of torture.
Understandably, after putting on a performance that almost made Yang Ye singing Judgment sound good, Toru got all the X's. Afterwards, he tried to confront one of the judges, saying that he was deserving of recognition, to which Opu very rightfully pointed out that he was entitled to nothing, especially if he hadn't even put in any actual work or effort beforehand, and was just clearly jumping into this whole idol thing on a whim. This upset Toru to the point that he actually remembered what he had been sent to Earth for and teleported Hana away from the Ojamajo just as they walked away from him. The Ojamajo quickly suited up into their Paltorain forms to find Hana, though really the only thing they needed were good ears when the toddler herself managed to reveal where they were. However, while chasing them, Doremi and Ompu ended up tripping on some wooden boards that hurt the ankle of the latter. Injured and needing to return to filming, Ompu left the search to the rest of her team. Toru did show some natural remorse for his actions, but as we'll get to, it doesn't completely pan out, at least in my opinion. Regardless, the Ojamajo proceeded with their search, but had to stop themselves when they thought that their outfits would cause a commotion. Don't get any bright ideas, Disney. Yeah, of course they didn't have to worry about running around in costumes in a TV studio. Well, except for the fact that you really shouldn't run in hallways in general, but whatever. Toru, having gotten lost, ended up passing through several live recordings and newscasts that ended up kind of showing the age of this show. Yeah, I think he preferred a cheeseburger and a ton of sake, just to forget the fact that he's married to this thing. Eventually, he stumbled upon Ompu's filming, where she was still clearly injured. He also ran into Oyashi to help set up this guy that's kind of gotten overdone. Also, is that kangaroo disguise the only thing he owns, or is he just a big MJF fan? But yeah, this is also meant to resolve Toru's arc of learning what it really takes to be a professional entertainer, with her pushing through the ankle injury that he indirectly caused. And while on paper, that is a decent scenario with the unwilling antagonist witnessing the results of their actions and not only coming to regret them, but also recognizing how truly petty their actions were, for Toru, it just felt a bit rushed. I'm not sure, but I think the problem again, much like with Leon, is that he kind of flip-flopped between good and evil a little too quick for it to fully register. Now personally, I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as his cohort, but it does feel like Ompu is doing all the heavy lifting of this arc in more ways than one. Meanwhile, back with Oyashi, his defeat in this one was yet again because of his obsession with the little purple magical girl, and as if they weren't being blatant enough, Doremi reeled him in with some giant handcuffs. And this did make the resulting battle with him at least entertaining, even if it was a little overplayed at this point. Let's see, kangaroo, inflation, and yeah, I'd be surprised if this wasn't on Roll 34. And with that, the episode ended with Ompu managing to cut her way through the filming, and later making a quick recovery that even coincided with her fan club reaching over 1 million members. Unfortunately, number 1 million was this guy, who declared himself not just as an Ompu fan, but also her direct rival, going right into his next audition rather than to take up some dancing, or more importantly, singing lessons, you know, the thing that she encouraged him to enroll in.
We hope you've enjoyed No Moral Theater.
Well, this was certainly Yoshimi Narita script. I mean, it certainly had some of the more spot-on comedy of the series, complemented by Akira Inagami's energetic animation, making for some great overreactions. But some of her writing for male characters can be a bit off, like with half of the Flat Four. And while I wouldn't say Toru really took away anything from this episode, he also didn't really add that much either. Overall, I think I do prefer the first two members of the Flat Four over the latter two, for the most part. I mean, Toru did have at least kind of an arc here, if a little rushed, and hard to say if he learned anything or not, but at least he wasn't aggravating, and did at least reflect on his actions. Hell, him becoming a gold member of Ompu's fan club could be seen at least as a small penance, as I'd imagine you have to pay a little extra for that. Still, like many Yoshimi Narita scripts for this or Precure, it's more about the comedy, which this episode managed to achieve especially well thanks to the TV studio setting, where just by its very nature, they had a plethora of literal set pieces to work off of, leading to some fun chaos. That, plus at least a decent Oyashi battle, did make for a fun, if slightly unfocused episode overall. Toru still needs a lot of work, though showbiz also tends to be very fickle, so who knows, maybe he'll find his niche eventually, like maybe with IRL streaming. For all of our watchers here in the States, I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving the day after this video goes up. I hope you enjoy your time with your friends and family, and more importantly with all of that free food if you're not the one cooking. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and I really need to get a new green screen.